¿Cuántos ejecutaste, dices?
Ah, 4.
From the young child who started killing at the age of 11 to the 15-year-old cartel hitman who now relishes the idea of gruesomely murdering people, these teenagers are not your regular. Brace yourself for a mind-boggling journey as we delve into the chilling world of the youngest cartel members and the deep-rooted violence in the drug world. Edgar Jimenez Lugo. In a country ravaged by years of drug cartel-fueled violence, one story stands out among the rest. It is the tale of a baby-faced American teenager who would become known as the youngest cartel member in history. Edgar Jimenez Lugo, also known as El Ponchis or the Cloak, would lay bare the gruesome details of his life in organized crime, shocking the world with his chilling confessions.
A baby-faced American teenager accused of working as an assassin for the South Pacific Drug Cartel was paraded in front of reporters.
It all began when Lugo was just a young boy, growing up in a poverty-stricken area. Like many others in his community, he dreamed of a better life, one filled with money and power. Little did he know that his desires would lead him down a dark and twisted path. At the tender age of 11, Lugo's life took a sinister turn. He was approached by members of the South Pacific Cartel, one of the most ruthless and powerful drug cartels in Mexico. They saw potential in the young boy, a potential that could be molded and shaped to serve their sinister purposes. Lured in with promises of wealth and influence, Lugo was enticed by the allure of a life he had only dreamed of. But little did he know the horrors that awaited him. The cartel leaders saw in him a perfect pawn, someone who could carry out their dirty work without question and without raising suspicions. Under the influence of drugs and threatened by the cartel, Lugo was forced into a life of violence and bloodshed. He became a key player in the cartel's operations, carrying out acts of brutality that seemed unimaginable for someone so young. Lugo's first taste of murder came at the age of 11, when he slit the throats of 4 victims himself. The sheer brutality of his actions sent shockwaves through the country as the public struggled to comprehend how such a young boy could be capable of such heinous acts. Eventually, Lugo's crimes caught up with him. He was arrested and brought to trial as a juvenile. The court heard his chilling confessions as he detailed the pressure and fear he experienced, as well as the constant influence of drugs that clouded his judgment. Despite his claims of being coerced and manipulated by the cartel leaders, Lugo was found guilty of torturing and beheading at least 4 people and kidnapping 3 others as an operative for the South Pacific Cartel. He was sentenced as a juvenile to 3 years in prison, a sentence that many believed was not enough for the atrocities he had committed. Now, at the age of 17, Lugo has been released from prison in Mexico and deported back to the United States. U.S. Customs and Border Protection facilitated the release of Lugo, and he was met by an aunt in San Antonio, Texas, who will be overseeing his progress. The exact location of his rehabilitation center remains undisclosed, but it is hoped that he will receive the necessary support and guidance to turn his life around. As a U.S. citizen, he does not face any criminal charges in his home country. He is free to move around like anyone else, leaving many to wonder what his next move will be. Raúl Meza Torres. Next, we delve into the dark and dangerous world of Mexican drug cartels as we uncover the astonishing tale of Cesar Raúl Meza Torres, the youngest cartel member to ever grace the streets of Mexico. Torres was born in the late 1990s into a family deeply involved in organized crime. His father, Raúl Meza Ontiveros, also known as LM6, was a Mexican drug lord and high-ranking leader of the infamous Sinaloa cartel. Growing up in this environment, Ruin was exposed to violence and criminal activity from an early age. It was a world where power and wealth were obtained through ruthless means. Expensive cars, luxurious mansions, and stacks of cash were a common sight. It was a seductive world that captivated young Ruin's imagination. He idolized his father, seeing him as a powerful figure who commanded respect and fear. Ruin's fascination with the cartel lifestyle only grew as he entered his teenage years. He found himself drawn to the allure of power, money, and the adrenaline rush that came with living on the edge, but it was his online presence that would catapult him into the spotlight. Ruin gained notoriety on social media platforms where he flaunted his affiliation with the Sinaloa cartel. His accounts were filled with pictures of him posing with high-powered weapons, stacks of cash, and expensive cars. These posts shocked and fascinated his followers, who were both intrigued and horrified by his audacity. Ruin's social media presence was unprecedented. He became a symbol of the cartel lifestyle, a figurehead for a new generation of criminals. His posts inspired a wave of young individuals to join criminal organizations, lured by the promise of money, power, and respect. Ruin's online persona attracted attention not only from aspiring criminals, but also from law enforcement agencies. His brazen display of weapons and wealth made him a prime target target for investigation, but Ruin seemed unfazed by the potential consequences. He reveled in the attention, believing that it only added to his mystique and power. However, Ruin's criminal career was about to take a deadly turn. At the age of 18, he found himself in the midst of a violent shootout with police officers in Zapopan, Jalisco on April 25, 2010. Police officers patrolling the area had stopped the vehicle Torres and his accomplice, Fidel Rojas Felix, were driving for a routine search. However, both boys refused to comply and instead started to shoot in the air and taunt the officers. When the officers asked them to calm down and turn themselves in, the boys opened fire instantly, killing one and shooting the other officer, identified as Jose Luis Monroy, 3 times. However, Officer Monroy was able to respond to the shooting by opening fire on Torres. Sustaining multiple gunshot wounds, Torres was rushed to a private hospital where he was pronounced dead. The news of his demise sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld and beyond. The youngest cartel member had met a violent end, leaving behind a legacy that would forever be etched in the annals of Mexican crime history. Juanito Pistola. Juanito Pistola's journey into the dark world of cartels began at a shockingly young age. At just 13 years old, he found himself drawn into the notorious Tropa del Infierno, also known as Hell Troop Gang, a faction of the Cartel del Noreste, CDN, formerly known as Los Zetas. This gang held a stronghold in the town of Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, where Juanito grew up. Nicknamed Comandante Chiquitin, meaning Commander Little in English, it is hard to fathom how a teenager could become entangled in such a dangerous and violent world. But for Juanito, the allure of power, money, and respect proved irresistible. The Tropa del Infierno gang offered him a sense of belonging and purpose that he had never experienced before. Armed with rifles and dressed in military uniforms, Juanito and his fellow gang members embarked on a path of destruction. They were known for their ruthless tactics and their willingness to do whatever it took to protect their territory and further their cartel's interests. Juanito quickly made a name for himself as a fearless and deadly hitman, carrying out orders without hesitation. As Juanito Pistola's involvement with the Tropa del Infierno gang deepened, so did his reputation as a ruthless and deadly hitman. His fearlessness and unwavering loyalty to the cartel earned him the respect of his fellow gang members and struck fear into the hearts of their rivals. Juanito's rise within the cartel ranks was swift and brutal. He carried out numerous acts of violence, leaving a trail of bloodshed in his wake. From targeted assassinations to brutal turf wars, Juanito was at the forefront of the cartel's operations, executing their orders with precision and ruthlessness. One of the most shocking incidents involving Juanito Pistola was a gruesome shootout with rival gang members. Armed with high-powered rifles, Juanito and his comrades engaged in a deadly firefight that left multiple casualties on both sides. The streets of Nuevo Laredo became a battleground, with innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. But it wasn't just rival gang members who felt the wrath of Juanito Pistola. Law enforcement officers also became targets of his deadly missions. Juanito and his gang members were known to specifically target police officers, seeking to strike fear into the hearts of those who dared to stand against them. The violence and brutality of Juanito's actions were unparalleled. His reputation as the youngest cartel hitman grew, and his name became synonymous with terror and bloodshed. The streets of Nuevo Laredo trembled under the weight of his actions as the cartel's grip on the town tightened. However, Juanito's reign of terror would eventually come to a gruesome end at the age of 16. On that fateful day, he and his gang members set out on a mission to murder police officers. Little did they know that this would be their final act of violence. They were ambushed by law enforcement near the airport in Nuevo Laredo, leading to a horrifying shootout that claimed Juanito's life. Alongside Juanito, 6 of his fellow gang members also lost their lives in the violent confrontation. Their lifeless bodies, captured in chilling photographs, served as a haunting reminder of the price they paid for their involvement in the cartel world. The van they were traveling in was left splattered with pieces of Juanito's skull, a gruesome and macabre scene that showcased the true horror of their final moments. The death of Juanito Pistola marked the end of a dark chapter in the cartel world. His violent actions and ruthless reputation had left a lasting impact on the town of Nuevo Laredo and the lives of those who crossed his path. Santiago. Santiago, a name that strikes fear into the hearts of many in the crime-ridden streets of Medellin, Colombia. But who is this young boy, and how did he become entangled in the dark and dangerous world of cartels? Santiago's story begins with a childhood marred by poverty and violence. Growing up in one of the most notorious neighborhoods in Medellin, he witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of the drug trade. His family, like many others, struggled to make ends meet, living in constant fear of the cartels that ruled the streets. But it was the tragic loss of his younger brother that would set Santiago on a path path of darkness and revenge. His brother, a bright and promising young soul, refused to be lured into the criminal organization as a hitman. It was a decision that would cost him his life. Consumed by grief and a burning desire for justice, 15-year-old Santiago made a fateful decision. He would avenge his brother's death, no matter the cost. With a borrowed gun in hand, he sought out the men responsible for his brother's murder, determined to make them pay. At the same time, he also became a hired cartel assassin. Santiago's journey into the world of cartels was not an easy one. He was taken under the wing of a seasoned hitman who saw potential in the young boy's burning rage. Under his mentor's guidance, Santiago learned the art of killing, honing his skills to become a formidable force in the criminal underworld. The initiation into the world of hitmen was a chilling experience for Santiago. He was taken to a secluded location where he was forced to carry out his first murder. The sight of blood, the sound of a life being extinguished, it was a moment that would forever change him. The darkness within him awakened, and he realized that he had found his calling. Santiago soon discovered that in the world of cartels, loyalty is everything. He earned the trust of his superiors by eliminating rival gang members and protecting the interests of the cartel. His reputation grew, and he became known as a ruthless and efficient killer, feared by both his enemies and his allies. But it wasn't just the thrill of the kill that drove Santiago. He had a greater purpose: to support his mother and sister, who were trapped in a cycle of poverty and despair. The money he earned from each killing, around 70 euros, became a lifeline for his family, providing them with a glimmer of hope in their otherwise bleak existence. As Santiago delved deeper into the world of cartels, he became a full-time assassin, working from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. every day. During the day, he would sell drugs in the neighborhood, maintaining his cover and furthering the interests of the cartel. It was a life consumed by darkness, where death lurked around every corner. Despite the horrors he witnessed and the lives he took, Santiago's emotions took a twisted turn. Initially repulsed by the sight of blood, he found himself drawn to it, fascinated by its power and the control it gave him. The adrenaline rush and the sense of dominance became an addiction that fueled his insatiable thirst for blood. Although Santiago, whose identity hasn't been publicly revealed, continues his relentless pursuit of vengeance operating as a hired hitman, the line between justice and revenge becomes blurred. His kills, once driven by a desire to protect his family and seek justice for his brother, now take on a darker tone. The thrill of the kill and its power begins to consume him, threatening to turn him into the very thing he despises. Friolito, aka Little Bean. In the crime-ridden streets of Colombia, a young boy named Frijolito, aka Little Bean, was destined for a life of darkness. Born into a world plagued by drug trafficking and violence, he would soon become a name that struck fear into the hearts of many. Frijolito's journey into the cartel began at a shockingly young age. At just 12 years old, he was already deeply entangled in the dangerous web of organized crime. While most children his age were playing with toys and attending school, Frijolito was learning the brutal ways of the streets. Growing up in the heart of Cali, a city notorious for its involvement in drug trafficking, Frijolito was exposed to the ruthless world of cartels from an early age. He witnessed the power and wealth that came with being a member of these criminal organizations. As Frijolito grew older, his fascination with the cartel lifestyle intensified. He idolized the infamous drug lords and dreamed of one day becoming a powerful figure himself. Little did anyone know, his dreams would soon turn into a horrifying reality. It was a fateful day when Frijolito was given his first assignment. At the tender age of 12, he took a life without hesitation, marking the beginning of his dark and violent journey. The shockwaves of his actions reverberated throughout the criminal underworld as the youngest cartel member to ever commit such a heinous act. From that moment on, Frijolito's path was set. He would become a force to be reckoned with, and his name would strike fear into the hearts of many as he continued to carry out acts of violence and terrorize the streets of Cali. One of Frijolito's most chilling crimes took place in a bustling shopping center. CCTV footage captured the horrifying moment when he executed a man in front of a jewelry counter. When a brave security guard attempted to intervene, Frijolito's deadly aim claimed another life. Frijolito's reign of terror had only just begun. He was said to be responsible for at least 30 murders by the time he was 17. His actions would shock the world and leave a trail of devastation in his wake. But the police were determined to put an end to his rampage, launching a relentless manhunt that would ultimately lead to his capture. The manhunt lasted for 4 long months. As the police closed in on Frijolito's whereabouts, the city of Cali held its breath, hoping for an end to the violence that had gripped their streets. Finally, the day came when the police raided one of Frijolito's hideouts. The young hitman was caught off guard, unable to escape the clutches of the law. His arrest sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld as the authorities celebrated a major victory. With Frijolito's capture, the chief of police declared that Cali was finally free from the grip of a dangerous individual who had committed numerous acts of violence. He was placed in a rehabilitation center for minors, years, to be transferred to prison once he clocked 18 years of age. The city breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing that a notorious hitman was no longer roaming their streets. Rosalio Reta.
Going on 13 years old the first time I took a life.
In the dangerous world of Mexican drug cartels, there is one name that stands out: Rosalio Reta. Known as one of the youngest cartel members in history, Reta's story is a chilling tale of how a promising young student and star quarterback from Texas border towns descended into a life of violence, drugs, and cash. Lured into the notorious Mexican drug cartel Los Zetas at the young age of 13, Reta became one of the deadliest assassins in the cartel's ranks. In the quiet border towns of Texas, a young boy named Rosalio Reta grew up dreaming of a future filled with promise and success. He was a good student, admired by his teachers, and a star quarterback on the football field, but little did he know that his life was about to take a dark and dangerous turn. Rosalio was born and raised in a close-knit community, just a stone's throw away from the violent drug war that was raging in Mexico. The allure of the cartel's power, money, and influence was always present, lurking in the shadows of his everyday life. It was during his teenage years that Rosalio's path crossed with the notorious Zetas drug cartel, one of the most feared and ruthless criminal organizations in Mexico. The Zetas were known for their brutal tactics and their iron grip on the drug trade. Rosalio was lured into the world of the Zetas through a series of calculated moves. He was invited to Mexico under false pretenses, unaware of the dangerous path that awaited him. At that moment, Rosalio sealed his fate.
What's Trevino tell you?
Just to kill that person, I had to do it. What other option do I have? If I don't do it, I know it's gonna happen to me.
And then after you did it, you shot him?
Yes, sir.
The cartel leader Miguel Angel Trevino handed Rosalio a handgun, a symbol of his new role within the organization. He was now a member of the Zetas, a sicario or assassin, tasked with carrying out the cartel's deadly orders. Rosalio's first assignment, which landed him on the radar of law enforcement, was a hit on a corrupt Mexican cop who had defected from the Zetas to join a rival cartel. It was a brazen act of violence, carried out in broad daylight. In a shocking turn of events, a high-ranking police officer was gunned down today in what appears to be a targeted assassination. Authorities suspect the involvement of a powerful drug cartel. This murder marked the beginning of Rosalio's descent into a world of darkness and despair. He was now fully immersed in the violent world of the Zetas, where loyalty was rewarded and betrayal was met with a swift and brutal end. He was racking in thousands of dollars gotten from the completion of each hit, and had even won a $70,000 Mercedes car at a cartel party. On the other hand, law enforcement agencies were eager to arrest those they suspected of being involved in the drug trade. Although Reta was living big, now working as a sicario, this moment would be short-lived as the net was closing in on Rosalio. In a dramatic confrontation, law enforcement finally caught up with both teens. The once feared hitmen were now faced with the harsh reality of their actions. Handcuffed and defeated, Rosalio was stripped of his power and brought to justice. He was sentenced to 70 years behind bars. Gabriel Cardona. In the border town of Nuevo Laredo, Gabriel Cardona found himself drawn into the dangerous world of drug cartels. As a young and impressionable teenager, Gabriel's life took a dark turn when he joined the Los Zetas cartel. From a regular American kid to a ruthless hitman, Gabriel's transformation was marked by violence, loyalty, and a thirst for power. He embraced the brutal reality of cartel life, proving himself time and again to climb the ranks within Los Zetas. In 2004, at the young age of 17, Cardona, along with other young recruits, had to go through a training camp. They were immediately thrown into a grueling physical training regimen. Under the watchful eyes of experienced cartel members, they endured long hours of intense workouts, focusing on strength, endurance, and combat skills. The training was relentless, designed to weed out the weak and ensure that only the strongest and most determined would survive. As the training progressed, the recruits were introduced to the world of weapons. They learned how to handle firearms, honing their marksmanship skills under the guidance of seasoned cartel members. It was while he was here that Cardona proved to be a killing machine and went on to become a sicario. He soon rose to the rank of a commander and was allowed to recruit his own members. That was the moment he brought on his childhood friend, Rosalio Reta, who was 13 at the time. Both teens were placed on a $500 retainer per week, were paid up to $10,000 commission for each killing, and drove expensive cars.
In all, how many people did you kill?
No idea.
No idea. You lost track?
It's so island world, man, and when you're in Mexico.
I mean, could you guess? Are we talking like 10, 20, 30, 50?
Between 20 and 30.
In the manhunt for cartel members, law enforcement officials were able to track Cardona to one of the cartel-owned safe houses, and that was where he was taken into custody. He pleaded guilty to 4 known murders in the United States. In one case, he had kidnapped and brutally murdered 2 American teenagers, during which he slashed them with a bottle, collected their blood in a glass, and toasted to La Santa Muerte, the Mexican personification of death. For his crimes, Cardona was sentenced to 80 years in prison and still remains incarcerated. Ovidio Guzman Lopez. In the sprawling city of Culiacan, Sinaloa, Mexico, a young boy named Ovidio Guzman Lopez was born into a world of chaos and crime. It was March 29th, 1990, when Ovidio took his first breath, destined to become a key player in the treacherous world of drug cartels. His father, the infamous Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, was already a notorious figure, Mexico's most wanted drug lord and the world's most wanted criminal. Ovidio's upbringing was far from ordinary. Raised in the shadow of his father's criminal empire, he experienced a childhood filled with danger and uncertainty. At first, he had a rather normal childhood, as his parents sought to provide him with a stable and secure environment. Ovidio attended a school run by the Legionaries of Christ, where he received an education that seemed promising for a bright future. However, Ovidio's idyllic childhood took a dark turn when he was just a young boy. As Ovidio entered his teenage years, the allure of his father's world began to beckon. It was in 2008, at the tender age of 18, that he officially became involved in his father's drug trafficking business. A U.S. grand jury indictment would later allege that Ovidio played a significant role in the operations of the Sinaloa cartel, marking him as a key lieutenant in the eyes of the Office of Foreign Assets Control. As Ovidio Guzman Lopez grew older, his influence within the Sinaloa cartel continued to expand. Alongside his brothers, Ivan Archivaldo Guzman, Jesus Alfredo Guzman, and the notorious Ismael El Mayo Zambada, Ovidio became a key figure in the cartel's operations, with their father, El Chapo, behind bars. The Guzman brothers stepped up to fill the void left by his absence. Reports from 2019 revealed that Ovidio had taken on a prominent leadership role within the Sinaloa cartel, orchestrating its operations with ruthless efficiency. The power and influence of the Guzman brothers were unparalleled. They commanded a vast network of drug trafficking routes, smuggling narcotics across borders, and amassing unimaginable wealth. Their grip on the criminal underworld was unyielding, instilling fear in their rivals, and even in those who dared to cross their path. Once, the Mexican government had captured Ovidio Guzman on October 17th, 2019. Little did they know that this arrest would set off a chain of events that would plunge the city into chaos and expose the true extent of the cartel's power. Heavily armed cartel gunmen took to the streets, threatening mass civilian deaths and launching a full-scale assault on the city. The apartment complex housing the relatives of local military personnel became a target, as the cartel sought to send a chilling message to those who dared to challenge their authority. In a move that stunned the nation, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador supported the decision to free Ovidio, stating that it was necessary to prevent more loss of life. The release of Ovidio Guzman Lopez sent shockwaves throughout Mexico and beyond. It was a clear demonstration of the power and influence that the Sinaloa cartel held over the government and law enforcement agencies. However, the fallout from the failed arrest did not end there. In the following month, one of the officers involved in Ovidio's capture, identified as Eduardo N., was brutally assassinated. The authorities knew that they could not let the actions of the Sinaloa cartel go unpunished. On January 5th, 2023, they launched a daring operation to capture Ovidio Guzman Lopez once and for all. Eyewitness accounts reveal that Ovidio had been celebrating at a family party the evening before his arrest, unaware of the impending raid. In the early hours of the morning, the military executed a meticulously planned raid on Ovidio's residence in the Jesus Maria district of Culiacan. With the use of helicopters and a convoy of ground vehicles, they swiftly apprehended Ovidio within 10 hours of entry. The once untouchable cartel prince was now in custody. The news of Ovidio's capture sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. The authorities had finally managed to bring down one of the most powerful figures in the drug trade. The capture of Ovidio marked a turning point in the fight against organized crime. It was a significant blow to the Sinaloa cartel, which had already been weakened by the arrest of his father, El Chapo. The authorities wasted no time in pursuing justice, as a federal judge placed Ovidio under a 60-day preventive detention to allow U.S. authorities to formally petition for his extradition. He is currently facing charges in the United States. Maria Guadalupe Lopez Esquivel. In the poverty-stricken towns of Michoacan, Mexico, a young girl named Maria Guadalupe Lopez Esquivel was born into a world of violence and despair. From an early age, she witnessed the devastating effects of the drug trade on her community. But little did she know that she would soon become a central figure in the very world that had torn her town apart. At the tender age of 14, Maria caught the attention of a local gang leader who saw potential in her. Impressed by her intelligence and fearlessness, he recruited her into the world of drug trafficking. And so, Maria's journey into the dark underbelly of the cartel began. She was alleged to be a leading figure and led a team of hitmen for the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, also known as CJNG. Now known as La Catrina, Maria quickly made a name for herself in the cartel world. With each successful mission, Maria's power and influence within the cartel grew. She became a key member of the cartel's hit squad, responsible for carrying out assassinations and acts of violence. She was also well known for showing off her curves and posing with rifles on her social media pages. But as her reputation grew, so did the danger that surrounded her. The October 14, 2019 ambush orchestrated by Maria Guadalupe Lopez La Catrina left 14 police officers dead and 9 others injured. It was a chilling display of the cartel's power and a stark reminder of the violence that plagued the region. But little did Maria know that this act of brutality would have far-reaching consequences, as Mexican security forces now had their eyes on her. She was in a meeting with fellow cartel leader Miguel M2 Fernandez, a top leader in the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, when they were raided by security forces who got a tip-off about her location. Gunfire erupted, filling the air with a deafening roar. Bullets flew in every direction as both sides fought fiercely for control. Amid the chaos, Maria found herself locked in a one-on-one gunfight, but despite her skill and determination, Maria was not invincible. A bullet found its mark in her neck, piercing her flesh and causing her to stumble. Blood stained her clothes as she fought to stay alive, refusing to give in. Her final moments were captured on camera, and although a medical helicopter was brought to the scene, by the time she was taken to the hospital, the now 21-year-old La Catrina was pronounced dead. The death of Maria Guadalupe Lopez, aka La Catrina, marked the end of an era in the cartel world. Her demise served as a stark reminder of the brutal reality of the drug trade and the fleeting nature of power. Edgar Valdez Villarreal was born and raised in the border town of Laredo, Texas. From a young age, he was drawn into a world of crime where the allure of power and wealth proved irresistible. But it was his striking appearance that earned him the nickname La Barbie. With his blonde hair and piercing blue eyes, Valdez resembled the iconic Ken doll, making him stand out in the criminal underworld. Valdez's criminal journey began in his teenage years when he became involved in the lucrative marijuana trade. He was just in high school when he realized the immense potential for profit in the drug business. However, after he was indicted on drug charges in the US, he fled to Mexico, where he made a fateful decision that would change the course of his life forever. He joined forces with the Beltran-Leyva cartel, one of Mexico's most powerful and feared drug trafficking organizations. Valdez's connections in the United States proved invaluable as he quickly rose through the ranks of the cartel, becoming a trusted lieutenant. Valdez's collaboration with both the DEA and the FBI while working as a drug trafficker added another layer of complexity to his criminal activities. He played a dangerous game, using his connections to gather intelligence and protect his own interests. But it was his ambition and thirst for power that set him apart from his peers. As Valdez's influence within the Beltran-Leyva cartel grew, he formed an enforcement squad known as Los Negros. This group, allegedly controlled by Valdez and overseen by the cartel, became a force to be reckoned with. Los Negros carried out the cartel's violent operations, using brutal tactics to maintain control and instill fear in their rivals. Valdez's leadership and strategic thinking allowed him to gain the upper hand in the conflict. His brutal tactics, including torture and decapitation, sent a chilling message to rival cartels and anyone who dared to challenge his authority. But as the violence escalated, so did the attention from law enforcement agencies. On August 30th, 2010, after a year-long pursuit, Valdez's reign of terror came to an end. Mexican federal police finally captured him, bringing an end to his criminal empire. In a video released by the police, Valdez confessed to smuggling drugs and money between Panama in Central America and the United States, revealing the extent of his criminal activities. With Valdez's capture, his father-in-law, Carlos Montemayor Gonzalez, took control of the cartel. However, Montemayor Gonzalez's reign was short-lived, as he too was arrested just 3 months later. The cartel's power structure crumbled, leaving a void that would be filled by new players in the criminal underworld. Valdez's extradition to the United States in 2015 marked the end of an era. In June 2018, he was sentenced to 49 years in a federal prison, where he currently resides. However, as of November 2022, it remains unclear whether Valdez is still in prison, as as he was listed as not in custody, leaving many to wonder about his current whereabouts and the possibility of his involvement in further criminal activities. This video of the youngest cartel members sends shivers down the spine, especially when you consider the ages of those involved and the extent of their crime. While some have been able to get a second chance at life, others are not so lucky as the violence eventually catches up with them. For more videos like this, click on the cards showing on your screen and I'll be waiting.